Hey everyone, and welcome back to the AnzenGuard podcast. I'm Michael Reynolds.
And I'm Laura Wilson.
And we are so glad you could join us for another deep dive into the world of digital security.
You know, we get asked this question a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Mac versus PC.
Yeah, which one is more secure?
Which one should I buy if security is my main concern?
Right.
And there's this persistent myth that Macs are practically impenetrable.
Like Fort Knox for your data.
Exactly. These fortresses that hackers simply can't breach. But
Right.
our deep dive into the latest research is revealing that the reality is much more nuanced.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, actually, some of the things we found.
Yeah.
It's like, remember that whole Macs are immune to viruses?
Oh, yeah.
thing?
Yeah, that's so old school.
Right, it's like dial-up internet.
Exactly.
But, Macs are becoming increasingly attractive targets for cyber criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, Mac-focused attacks are growing at twice the rate of those aimed at Windows PCs.
It's a wake-up call. For anyone who thought they were safe just because they had an Apple logo on their laptop.
I mean, I kind of get it, right?
Yeah.
Like Apple has that reputation for being, secure and sleek.
Yeah, that kind of premium
Right.
experience.
Right. And you think, oh, it must be more secure.
But it turns out it's not just about the number
Right
of
on.
threats.
Right.
What we're seeing is a shift in tactics.
Okay, so the bad guys are up in their game.
Absolutely. Hackers are getting more sophisticated, finding new ways to exploit vulnerabilities in macOS.
So they're figuring out the Mac's weaknesses.
Exactly. And a lot of the malware targeting Macs these days spreads through seemingly harmless downloads.
Okay, so it's like you click on what you think is a legitimate file.
Right. And then bam, you've just invited a digital intruder
Yikes.
into your system.
So it's not just about Macs being targeted more. It's about the attacks getting sneakier.
Exactly. It's like they're getting stealthier.
And this reminds me of something else we found
Yeah.
in our research. It's not just about the number of threats, but how quickly companies respond.
That's a crucial point, because even if there are threats out there, if the company's on top of it
Right.
and they're releasing patches quickly, it really mitigates the risk.
Right, because, you could have a system that's maybe not perfectly secure,
Right.
but if they patch things quickly, it's almost as good.
Exactly. It's like having a really responsive security team.
Right.
Right? They're on it. As soon as something happens,
Right.
they're there to fix it.
Yeah, so that response time is really key.
It is.
And speaking of response time, remember the flashback exploit back in 2012?
Wow.
Took Apple almost 50 days
Yeah, I remember that.
to release a patch to fix that vulnerability.
And in the digital world, that's a lifetime.
It's like dog years.
Exactly. It's like leaving your front door
Wide open.
wide open.
For like a month and a half.
Yeah, not exactly a recipe for security, is it?
No, it's not like, come on in, guys. The door's open.
Free for all.
Make yourselves at home. Take whatever you want.
Help yourself to my data.
Exactly. And, you get it. Companies are big.
Mm.
There's bureaucracy.
Yeah,
But 50 days,
that's a long time.
that's a long time.
To leave that door open.
To leave that door open, especially when you're marketing yourself as, the safer option.
Yeah. You got to back it up.
You got to back it up, right?
Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about this myth
Right.
of Mac and vulnerability.
Yeah.
But let's actually break it down.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, let's do a head-to-head.
Okay,
Mac versus PC.
let's compare.
What are the strengths and weaknesses of each platform?
Sounds good.
So you, the listener, can, weigh the pros and cons along with us.
Make an informed decision.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, let's start with the Mac.
Okay, the Mac.
Now, I've got to admit, Macs do have a reputation for being user-friendly.
They are very intuitive.
Right. You just kind of pick them up.
Yeah,
You intuitively know how to use them.
and that's a big plus for a lot of people.
Right. It's like they just work.
Exactly.
But does that ease of use translate into better security?
Well, in some ways it can.
Okay.
A user who understands their device is less likely to make mistakes
Right.
that could compromise their security.
Right. If you know what you're doing, you're less likely to click on that sketchy link.
Exactly. And plus, Macs have historically had lower attack rates.
Okay.
Simply because they held a smaller share of the market.
This is like a numbers game.
Yeah, fewer targets mean less incentive for the bad guys.
Right. It's like, why rob the little convenience store when you can hit the bank?
Exactly.
Right.
But as Macs become more popular,
Uh-oh.
that advantage starts to fade.
Right, because now the bad guys are like, ugh.
There's a bigger pool of potential victims.
Right, more Macs, more targets.
Exactly.
So that initial advantage is kind of disappearing.
It is.
Okay, so that's a bit of a downside.
Yeah, and there's another potential downside
Oh.
to that user friendliness.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It can breed a false sense of security.
Okay.
People assume that because Macs are easy to use,
Right.
they must also be inherently safe.
Like it's built into the design.
Exactly. And they let their guard down, don't install antivirus software, click on sketchy links.
Oh, no.
It's like they think that Apple logo is some kind of magic shield
Right.
against all digital threats.
The Apple force field.
Exactly.
But we know that's not true.
Well, it's not. Even Macs are vulnerable.
Right, and we've seen that.
Yeah.
Like, remember that flashback Trojan we mentioned?
Oh, yeah. A whopping 700,000 Mac users.
700,000 were infected.
Yeah, that's a lot of Macs.
It is. And many of them because they thought they didn't need antivirus protection.
Wow. That's a stark reminder that complacency is a serious threat.
Complacency kills.
It really does, no matter what kind of computer you're using.
It doesn't matter if you're on a Mac or a PC. If you're not paying attention,
Right.
you're vulnerable.
Okay, so Macs have their strengths and weaknesses.
They do.
Let's flip the coin
Okay.
and take a look at the PC. The PC.
Windows PCs are kind of the dominant force in the computer world,
They are.
right? They're everywhere.
Ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous, exactly. It's like, the big city
Yeah,
that attracts all the, let's say, entrepreneurs.
I like that analogy.
Right. So more users, more potential targets.
Makes sense.
So it's no surprise that Windows PCs are in the crosshairs.
More often.
More often, yeah.
It's like a popular car model being more likely to be stolen.
Right.
Simply because there are more of them on the road.
It's a numbers game.
It is pure and simple.
Right. So Microsoft, the company behind Windows, they're dealing with this constant barrage of threats.
They are. They're on the front lines.
Right. So how do they handle it?
Well, they've actually become quite proactive in recent years.
Okay.
Windows updates are released frequently,
Okay.
often addressing vulnerabilities as soon as they're discovered.
So it's like a constant patching process.
Yeah, shoring up the defenses against the latest attacks.
They're like the digital equivalent of those guys who patch potholes,
Exactly. Always working.
keeping the road smooth.
Keeping everything running smoothly.
Right.
And Windows also comes with some pretty robust built-in security features.
Okay, so right out of the box, PCs have some level of protection.
Exactly. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of extra software.
Right.
You've got some basic protection right there.
Built in.
Built in.
Okay, that's good.
And they're constantly working to improve those features.
Okay, so they're not resting on their laurels
No, they're always trying to stay one step ahead
of the bad guys.
of the bad guys.
But, nothing's perfect.
Right.
So are there any areas where PCs could do better?
Well, I know you've heard concerns about Microsoft Edge
Oh, yeah.
and its data collection practices.
Yeah, there's been some chatter about that.
Yeah, there have been some whispers.
So is there any fire to that smoke?
It's definitely a valid concern. Microsoft Edge has been criticized for collecting a lot of user data.
Okay.
While they claim some of this data is used to improve the browsing experience,
Right.
it does raise privacy questions.
Right, so it's like they're trying to be helpful, but
at what cost?
at what cost, right?
To your privacy.
Exactly. So you have to weigh the convenience of a built-in browser
Right.
with the potential cost of your personal information.
It's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off, right? And it seems like security is always this balancing act,
It is.
right? You're trying to stay protected
Right.
without sacrificing functionality or privacy.
It's like a puzzle,
It is.
trying to find all the right pieces
To fit together.
to make it all work.
And, we've been focusing a lot on the tech itself.
Yeah.
Macs versus PCs, built-in features, updates. It's easy to get lost in the nuts and bolts.
It is.
Oh, great.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical details.
But there's another factor in this equation
Oh, yeah.
that's even more important
More important than the operating system.
than the operating system,
What is it?
the human element,
The user.
the user,
Wow.
the wild card. Because even with all the fancy security features in the world, careless online behavior can render them useless.
It's like having a state-of-the-art security system for your house,
Right.
but leaving the front door wide open.
Right. All that tech is pointless
Exactly.
if you're not careful about who you let in.
Precisely. We humans are often the weakest link
Ouch.
in the security chain.
So we're the problem.
Sometimes we click on suspicious links, download files from shady websites,
Right.
use weak passwords.
Come on, guys.
We basically roll out the red carpet
For hackers.
for hackers, and they know it. They exploit our human weaknesses,
Oh, well.
using social engineering tactics to trick us into compromising our own security.
So they're playing mind games with us.
They're masters of manipulation.
Okay, so let's get real here. How do we stop being the weakest link?
That's the million-dollar question,
Right.
and that's what we'll dive into in the next part
Okay, so stay tuned.
of our deep dive.
We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back to the AnzenGuard podcast. It's great to have you with us as we continue our exploration of Mac versus PC security. If you missed the first part, we tackled some of the myths surrounding Mac invulnerability and discovered that no computer is truly immune to the ever-evolving world of cyber threats.
That's right. We left off talking about how you, the user, are often the most vulnerable part of the security equation. It's easy to get caught up in comparing the technical features of different operating systems, but it's essential to remember that security is a shared responsibility.
So let's dive into some practical tips for making ourselves less, shall we say, hackable. What's the first line of defense in our digital fortress?
Think of it like this. Every time you create an account online, you're essentially building a new door to your digital life. And you need a strong lock on each of those doors. We're talking about passwords, Michael, the guardians of our digital kingdoms.
Okay, passwords. We all know they're important, but creating and remembering a bunch of complex passwords can feel like a mental gymnastics routine. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's resorted to using the same password for multiple accounts, or picking something that's easy to remember but also easy to guess.
I hear you, Michael. It's tempting to take shortcuts, but using weak or duplicate passwords is a recipe for disaster. Think about it. If a hacker gets hold of one of your passwords and you've used it for multiple accounts, they suddenly have access to your email, your social media, maybe even your financial information. It's like using the same key for your house, your car, and your safe deposit box. One key to unlock them all, but also one key to lose them all.
So what's the solution? Are we doomed to a life of scribbling down complicated passwords on sticky notes and hoping we don't lose them?
Absolutely not. There's a much better way: passphrases. Instead of relying on a single word that's easy to crack, think of a phrase that's meaningful to you but wouldn't be obvious to anyone else. It could be a line from your favorite song, a quote from a book, or even just a silly inside joke. The longer and more unique the phrase, the harder it will be for hackers to guess.
Give us an example. Walk us through creating a super secure passphrase.
Okay, let's say your favorite food is pizza. You love listening to jazz music, and you have a quirky fondness for collecting vintage postcards. You could create a passphrase like this: pizza and jazz groups and postcards. It's long, it's unique, and it's easy for you to remember because it incorporates elements from your own life.
That's actually pretty clever. It's not just a random jumble of letters and numbers. It's something personal that you can easily recall. And you're not limited to just letters and words. You can throw in some numbers and symbols, too.
Exactly. Get creative with it. And here's another tip. Don't reuse passwords across different accounts. It might seem like a hassle to create a unique password for every website and app, but trust me, it's worth the effort. If one of your accounts gets compromised, you don't want the hacker to have a skeleton key to your entire digital life.
So strong and unique passphrases for every account. Got it. But honestly, keeping track of all those passphrases sounds like a nightmare. Do you have any tips for managing this digital chaos?
You bet. That's where password managers come in. These handy tools can generate strong, unique passwords for you. You store them securely and even autofill them on websites and apps. It's like having a digital vault for your passwords with one master password to unlock it all.
Password managers, that's a game changer. Okay, so we've got our passwords locked down. What's the next crucial step in fortifying our digital defenses?
Let's talk about updates. You know those pesky notifications that pop up on your computer reminding you to install the latest software updates? They might seem like a minor inconvenience, but they play a vital role in keeping your system secure.
Okay, I'll admit sometimes I hit the remind me later button on those update notifications. I'm guilty of procrastinating when it comes to updating my software.
I understand the temptation to put it off, Michael. We're all busy. But those updates often contain critical security patches that fix vulnerabilities in the software. Think of it like this. Hackers are constantly searching for weak spots in software, looking for cracks they can exploit to gain access to your system.
So those updates are like patching those cracks, reinforcing your digital walls, and making it much harder for the bad guys to break in.
Precisely. Whether it's your operating system, your web browser, or your antivirus software, keep it updated. It's one of the simplest yet most effective ways to protect yourself from cyber attacks.
Updates check.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned antivirus software. Is that something everyone needs regardless of whether they're using a Mac or a PC?
It's definitely something to consider, Michael, especially if you spend a lot of time online or download files from various sources. Think of antivirus software as a digital bodyguard for your computer. It scans for and neutralizes malicious software like viruses, worms, and trojans before they can wreak havoc on your system.
So it's like having an extra layer of protection, a safety net in case something slips through the cracks.
Exactly. And nowadays, antivirus software goes beyond just detecting and removing viruses. It often includes features like anti-phishing protection, which helps you avoid falling for scams that try to trick you into revealing personal information, and ransomware protection, which safeguards you from attacks that try to hold your data hostage.
That's a lot of protection packed into one piece of software. But with so many antivirus programs out there, how do we choose the right one?
That's a great question, Michael. And it's something we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore the different types of antivirus software, what features to look for, and how to choose the best protection for your needs.
Sounds like a plan. Welcome back to the AnzenGuard podcast for the final part of our deep dive into Mac versus PC security. We've covered a lot of ground, from debunking the myth of Mac invulnerability to exploring the importance of strong passwords and staying up to date with software updates.
That's right. And last time we left you on a bit of a cliffhanger talking about the importance of antivirus software. We know it's an extra layer of protection in the digital world,
Right.
but with so many options out there,
So many.
it can feel overwhelming to choose the right one.
It really can. It's like trying to pick a bodyguard
Yeah,
from a lineup of superheroes.
I like that.
They all have different powers and strengths.
Right.
So how do you know which one is best suited to protect you?
Well, the first step is to understand what kind of protection you need. Are you a casual internet user who mainly browses the web and checks email?
Right?
Or do you download files, frequently visit a wide range of websites,
All right.
and engage in online activities that involve sharing sensitive information?
Okay, so basically the more you do online, the more vulnerable you are to
Exactly.
those digital entrepreneurs we talked about earlier.
You're attracting more attention.
Right. More targets on my back.
Exactly. So if you're a light user,
Okay.
a basic antivirus program might be sufficient.
Okay.
These programs typically offer real-time protection against viruses, malware, and spyware.
Okay.
They'll scan your computer for threats, quarantine suspicious files, and alert you to any potential dangers.
So they're like the neighborhood watch of the digital world.
Exactly. Keeping an eye out for anything suspicious.
Okay. And what about for those of us who spend more time in the digital Wild West, downloading files, exploring new websites, pushing the boundaries of the internet?
For those users, a more comprehensive antivirus suite might be a better choice.
Okay.
These suites often include additional features like anti-phishing protection, which can help you avoid falling for those sneaky scams that try to trick you into revealing personal information.
So it's like having a bodyguard who's not only strong, but also incredibly perceptive
Exactly. Able to spot those subtle signs of danger.
that we might miss.
Yeah, we might miss.
Okay. And some antivirus suites go even further, right?
They do.
What else do they offer?
They offer features like ransomware protection, which safeguards you from attacks that try to lock you out of your own data and hold it hostage until you pay a ransom.
Ransomware, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like something straight out of a cybercrime thriller.
It's a growing threat, Michael,
It is.
and one that can have devastating consequences.
Yeah, I mean, your data, that's everything.
It is. It's your digital life.
It is.
But luckily, there are ways to protect yourself.
Okay, good.
And choosing a robust antivirus suite with ransomware protection is a good place to start.
Okay, so we've got different levels of protection. Basic antivirus for casual users, and more comprehensive suites for those who venture further into the digital landscape. What else should we consider when choosing an antivirus program?
Well, you want to make sure it's compatible with your operating system, whether you're on a Mac or a PC.
Right, of course.
You also want to consider the impact on your computer's performance. Some antivirus programs can be quite resource-intensive, slowing down your system.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that. It's like having a bodyguard who's so big and bulky that they end up tripping over their own feet.
Yeah.
Not very effective.
Exactly. You want to find an antivirus program that strikes a balance between protection and performance.
Right.
Look for reviews and ratings to see how different programs stack up in terms of effectiveness and efficiency.
Okay, and I imagine there's a cost factor to consider as well.
Yes. Antivirus programs range in price from free to premium subscriptions.
Okay.
Free versions typically offer basic protection, while paid versions often come with more features and support.
So it's like choosing between a volunteer neighborhood watch group and a team of highly trained security professionals.
Yeah, you get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for. All right, so lots to consider when choosing an antivirus program.
There is, but it's worth taking the time to find the right one for you.
This has been an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
We've learned that security isn't just about choosing the right computer. It's about understanding the threats, adopting safe online habits, and taking proactive steps to protect ourselves, like choosing the right antivirus software.
And remember, Michael, security is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The digital landscape is constantly evolving, and so are the threats.
So we got to stay vigilant.
We do. We have to stay informed and be proactive about our digital security.
And that's where we come in, Nudristy. The AnzenGuard podcast is here to help you navigate the ever-changing world of cybersecurity.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into Mac versus PC security, please subscribe to our podcast, leave us a comment, and share it with your friends.
We're Michael Reynolds.
And Laura Wilson.
And we'll be back next time with another deep dive into the world of digital security. Until then, stay safe online.